Biden vows American support for Israel, Ukraine in Oval Office address. Yahoo News. The president argued that the United States remained a global beacon, and that the struggles in Israel and Ukraine were important for the survival of democracy. Below are your comments. The amount of money to other countries is outrageous. The U.S. has homelessness, border issues, problems with health care and Social Security. We need to invest more in the U.S. We can help other places but not at the level Biden wants. It just isn't realistic. Biden intends to allocate $74 billion to Ukraine and Israel. Our government must borrow this money before providing it to these foreign nations. Firstly, why don't we lend them the money instead of giving it to them? Biden won't be around himself to repay it. It will fall on us and our children. At least Biden was honest enough to say we were doing this to partially boost our own economy at home. By manufacturing new bombs and rockets right here in the USA. First time I hear a politician tell the truth. So, we're now back in many unnecessary wars overseas and back to GW days. What Biden d? American leadership? With the border wide open, can't pass a budget, can't elect a speaker. Housing crisis, homelessness rampant everywhere, interest rate the highest in my lifetime. The only, at least for now, gas price is down, eggs is down but meat is still high, car prices I don't even want to. President, if the United States is able and willing to protect our allies, then your administration should be able and willing to protect the American people by securing the border. And, by removing the Trojan horse of people that have been let into our country without proper background checks. Next news. 5 takeaways from Biden's Oval Office address. The Hill. President Biden addressed the nation from the Oval Office Thursday evening. The main topics of the 15-minute speech were the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, and the war in Ukraine. The Middle East has entered a horrific new phase since Hamas bleep about 1,400 Israelis in a surprise attack on October. Israeli reprisals. Below are your comments. The only takeaway is that the Biden administration and the Democrats just want more money from us. Nothing else. We cannot take care of ourselves as ongoing homelessness and violence across country, especially in the city of San Francisco, still progressing. Therefore, forget about taking of off. One takeaway from Biden's Oval Office address: that he is an old, tired and senile man who should retire and spend his remaining days with his dysfunctional family. Although I doubt he can fix his family. A bit too late for that too. He certainly won't be able to aid this country. 15 minutes of wasted time. I heard nothing about our hostages or Iran. He just read off the teleprompter what his superiors told him to say. Who the H is running our country? It sure ain't Joe Biden. Why did this address even happen? He said absolutely zero that shocked anyone. He's been about the two-state solution from the very beginning, even though that can't possibly work. We'll just put cancer cells in half your body and you'll be fine. As anticipated, he's pandering to Muslim int. Deputy National Security Advisor John Feiner claims that Biden admin has an understanding with Hamas not to steal U.S. The $100 million in humanitarian aid for Palestinians comes just days after the UN Relief and Works Agency posted on X that Hamas stole. Next news. Several Canadian diplomats leave India as dispute escalates. Bloomberg. Sign up for the India Edition newsletter by Manaka Doshi, an insider's guide to the emerging economic powerhouse, and the billionaires and businesses behind its rise, delivered weekly. Most read Fr. Bloomberg. Where does Israel get its 220,000 barrels of oil every day? Here's what 8% mortgage rates will do to the housing market. It falls to 25-year low, the worst performer in Asia after yen this year. Biden's influence turns Israel's ground war plans into something different. Below are your comments. This cuts off a huge revenue stream for Canada. Universities issuing student visas like there's no tomorrow for the tuition fees. Misleading headline. 2/3 were excess staff beyond diplomatic agreement. They were kicked out. India's inability to shut down boiler room phone call centers to promote Medicare, solar, end-of-leaf e-insurance and other scams is a clear and present danger to the citizens of the United States, and I wish that our government would do more about that. In Indian culture, the left hand is considered unclean because it is the hand used when going to the bathroom, for cleaning one's feet and other dirty activities. 12 Like wipe it off. Never ever allow your sub be touched by left hand. Always eat and interact with people with your right. Clean. Stop processing tourist visas. Many tourists never return to India. Some cross into the United States illegally. Others hide in Asian communities, in Toronto and other cities, working for cash. Next news. China's stance on Hamas key point of division, U.S. envoy says. Bloomberg. The U.S.'s top diplomat in China called on President Xi Jinping's government to denounce terrorism by Hamas, citing Beijing's stance toward the group as yet another challenge in fraught ties between the world's biggest economies. Most read from Bloomberg. Where does Israel get its 220,000 barrels of oil every day? Here's what 8% mortgage rates will do to the housing market. It falls to 25-year low, the worst performer in Asia after yen this year. Biden's influence turns Israel's ground. Below are your comments. Smoke and mirrors. Why should China openly condemn Hamas? Did the U.S. ever openly condemn Israel's bleep of Palestinians? No. In fact, we went as far as vetoing any and all UN resolutions regarding the matter. Now we're up in arms over chip manufacturing like we can slow China's progress on dev. We owe China money. There are 1.3 billion of them and 330 million of us. Odds are not in our favor. How many items do you own that are made in China? Ugh. Everything. Labor costs are much lower, and it's just business. Dollar, but sure we should be doing FONA maneuvers in the South and AS. American people should know that China is siding with terrorists. They don't even condemn the invasion of Putin in Ukraine. How do they denounce terrorism by Hamas? Look at that corrupt monster. The US needs to become self-sufficient so we have no reason to buy things from these world's tyrants. China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela. Next news. UN calls for immediate humanitarian ceasefire to provide aid to Gaza. HuffPost. The United Nations called for the ceasefire to the Israel-Hamas attacks so that aid can reach people in Gaza, who have gone nearly 2 weeks without food, water and other essentials. Below are your comments. Numerous attempts were made at a ceasefire but it never happened. If a peace were to be reached, one must physically mediate with two sides to reach an agreement. A simple talk or even a persuasion always never work. A mind always is affected negatively at violence, so something needs more than. Israel has every right for two conditions to be met for a ceasefire. It is time after 75 years for the Arabs to accept that the Jews are native to Israel and legal immigrants, and that their failed attempt at genocide of these legal residents caused. Oh, by all means help the instigators of horrific atrocities so they can regroup to commit more war. See rhymes. They have to stay fed and medicated so they can lob more rockets into Israel to bleep more Israeli civilians. Geez, the UN is beyond words, really. I think the UN and the United States should keep their mouth shut and let Israel keep the pressure on the Hamas low-lives until the Hamas totally gives up, and then make Hamas fight some more until the why never want to ever fight with anyone. If you have a ceasefire, all you are doing is letting Hamas. Next news. Special operations of Ukrainian troops on left bank of Kherson Oblast are larger than before, ISW. Ukrainska Pravda. The Institute for the Study of War estimates that Ukrainian actions on the left bank of the Dnipro are Iver in Kherson Oblast appear to be larger than the tactical raids that took place earlier. And geolocation footage indicates that Ukraine's forces are maintaining their presence along the Dnipro shoreline and near the Antonivka railway bridge, despite Russian counterattacks. Below are your comments. Ukraine is kicking the teeth in of their Russian war criminal enemy, and the Kremlin employees on SA message boards are very sad that Ukraine will be victorious. Vladimir Putin will also soon be bleeped by his own Russian people for good and future prosperity of Russia. Slava Ukraini Ukraine. Funny how when Ukraine needs more money there are many more postings about their military operations. Science fiction writer Ilarion Pavluk headed the press service of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Nay, the UNIAN news agency reported with reference to Pavluk himself. One can imagine what fantastic stories about the victories of Ukrainians the new head of the press S. Irvis will compose. Next news. India pushes back against Russia demands to pay for oil in yuan. Bloomberg. Sign up for the India Edition newsletter by Manaka Doshi, an insider's guide to the emerging economic powerhouse, and the billionaires and businesses behind its rise, delivered weekly. Most read Fr. Bloomberg. Where does Israel get its 220,000 barrels of oil every day? Here's what 8% mortgage rates will do to the housing market. Ring it falls to 25-year low, the worst former in Asia after yen this year. Biden's influence turns Israel's ground war plans into something different. Below are your comments. India has nothing to offer Russia. So where can Russia use its rupees? Or India can pay with curry, which no one wants. Never do business with any entity named Indian, Bharat, or Hindustan without payment in advance. These blokes are all deadbeats who change the deal after goods are delivered or refuse to pay. Plus they don't use toilet paper and wipe their ass with their hands. What can Russians buy from India with billions of rupees? Of course Russians want yuan so they can buy all kinds of stuff from China. India will pay only in INR. Russia could use it as toilet paper. Next news. Joe Biden delivers primetime address on Israel and Ukraine to earn support for war aid. People. The president said Hamas and Vladimir Putin both want to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy. Completely annihilate it. Below are your comments. And so? The U.S. thinks the world should obey everything it says or does. Those days are long gone. Vietnam, 2 million dead because we lied about being attacked by North Vietnam. Iraq 2, 400,000 dead. Because we lied about WMDs. Syria, another 400,000 dead because we lied about chemical weapons in S. So out of the $100 billion only $10 billion goes to Israel and the rest goes to Ukraine? Oh, I see, the big guy only gets his 10% on Ukraine aid. Oh darn. I missed it. I'm sure it was riveting. He probably said some things no one wanted to hear. It takes leadership and guts to say what should be said. I understand that 4 other counties have different views, but I would think they have a money machine. Like the same one the US uses. Can't they just add paper and print more money for themselves like we seem to do? Our great-great-grandkids will never be able to pay off the debt. Next news. Lawmakers react to Biden's Oval Office address. The Hill. Lawmakers reacted after President Biden delivered an Oval Office address on Thursday night. During W. Hitch he spoke on the Israel-Hamas conflict and the war in Ukraine. Democrats seem to react well to their leader's Thursday night speech, with many praising the president's words on the current foreign conflicts. Tonight, President Joe Biden masterfully presented the "Below are your comments." Biden could have started his speech by walking up to the Resolute desk on water. The GOP would have found fault. He spoke of both countries because he wanted people to not forget Ukraine is still fighting for our democracy. He talked about supporting our allies. Biden displayed leadership and presidential qualities. That's why the Republicans are confused and complaining. I feel a great swell of pity for the poor souls who come to Israel looking for trouble. Republicans these days are good at complaining and can't even pick a speaker in the House so the SUNTRY could function. Next news. Biden declares it is vital to U.S. security for Israel, Ukraine to succeed in wars, will request funding. Fox News. President Biden will request funding from Congress for Israel and Ukraine in order to fund America's national security needs, an investment he said will pay dividends for American security, while warning that both Hamas and Russian President Vladimir Putin seek to completely annihilate a neighboring democracy. Below are your comments. I wonder how many vitamin B shots will they give Biden in order to get him through his speech so he doesn't look out to the cameras in a "what am I supposed to say?" then say anyway, with nothing to fall. Ow. He loses it more and more each time he talks, and the ones who say, "Chin up, Joey, that 10% will come through." Will he demand a release of all hostages in return for no incursion? But Joe's a draft dodger. If he takes himself out during his mumbling rant, I'll watch. Next news. How a Utah businessman and nonprofit built a Ukrainian village in 6 months. Deseret News. Not waiting for the Russia-Ukraine war to end, Del Loy Hansen has contributed tens of millions of dollars toward to Ukraine with Love's housing efforts. This week, they toured Hansen Village with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky ahead of opening several housing developments for homeless Ukrainians. Below are your comments. God bless this man. Hats down. Thank you for your kindness. Real American hero. Now do something for your own country. Plenty of Americans suffering who could use free homes. Why you Ukrainian man out of Ukraine? Good for these folks. Glad they'll have a roof over their heads. Social media should be renamed Under the Bridge because every story draws trolls like flies to UK. Now what? This is a nice break for some victims of war's devastation, but the first 3 commenters are people. Ho post nothing but nay. Next news. Axios. Pentagon to send Israel shells initially earmarked for Ukraine. Kyiv Independent. The Pentagon is set to deliver 155 mm artillery shells to Israel that it had originally designated to be sent to Ukraine, unnamed Israeli officials told Axios on October 19. In early 2023, the 155 mm shells stored in the U.S.'s emergency stockpile located in Israel began to be transferred to Ukraine, Axios reported prior. Below are your comments. 155s for everyone. Except the USA. I hope the West and NATO especially learned their lesson. Pray for peace but always prepare for war. Your enemies never sleep. When you have the number one headband, number two wants it and trains, stacks, every day with the goal of coming for that headband. They don't need shells, they have many jets with accurate weapons. Give them to Ukraine. Did Zelensky approve this plan? Sweet. More dead Polly. Next news. Biden asks Congress for Israel, Ukraine aid in giant defense package. Defense news. President Biden intends to ask Congress for nearly $100 billion in military aid to Ukraine and Israel amid heightened tensions throughout the Middle East. Below are your comments. Billions upon billions of U.S. taxpayers' dollars for the national defense of every country except ours. What Hamas did is beyond horrific, and we need to stand by Israel as they're wiped out. But we should not be giving money. They can defend themselves against Hamas. As for Palestinians, enough already. There needs to be a two-state solution ASAP. They shouldn't be defined by Hamas. That loud flushing sound is segregationist Joe sending your social security check to fund foreign war. RS and Zelensky's bank accounts. No president in history has done more to destroy America than geriatric Joe. Next news. 30,000 Ukrainian civilians missing since Russia's invasion, ICMP report. The new voice of Ukraine. About 30,000 Ukrainian civilians have gone missing since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Director General of the International Commission on Missing Persons, ICMP, Catherine Bomberger told Ukrainian public broadcaster Suspiln on October 19. Below are your comments. According to the CIA, prior to the war, Ukraine was one of the top human trafficking countries in the world, including children. Let's pretend they suddenly stopped. They fled corrupt Ukraine and U.S. puppet clown dictatorship. All anti-American, anti-Ukraine comments below. One demented person. Queenie Deanie Havens of Oakland, California and his 1001 fake profiles all thumbing each other up and talking to each other. Next news. Biden draws parallels between Putin, Hamas in Oval Office address. The Hill. President Biden on Thursday used a primetime Oval Office address to argue U.S. Support for Israel and Ukraine in their respective wars is vital to American national security, drawing parallels between the two conflicts ahead of a request for congressional aid. Hamas and Putin represent different threats, but they share this in common: they both. Below are your comments. Maybe time to reflect on the border of America. Ya know the country you were installed to lead. Pisses me off to no end. Fake leader of a failing country. BTW, we are not a democracy. We are a republic. Words have meaning. Ukraine is a democracy? No opposition, no private media, not even freedom of religion. Next news. We stand with Israel, Biden says in Oval Office address. Deseret News. President Biden Israel-Hamas war. Biden funding to Israel. Biden funding to Ukraine. Biden support for Israel. What has Biden said about the Israel-Hamas war? Below are your comments. He needs over $1 billion to run for president in 2024. He is just bleeping up to Israeli lobby. It's amazing Biden tells Israel not to make the same mistakes the U.S. made after 9/11. But what does Joe Biden do? He throws open our American borders and tells everybody and his brother to come on down to the United States. We'll take care of you. We'll give you all you'll ever need. Then he updated 8:44 a.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time, Thursday, April 8, 2021. That's 2021. 2021. Next news. Ukraine starts bilateral talks on security guarantees with France. Ukrainska Pravda. On Thursday, the Ukrainian delegation began the first round of talks with France on concluding a bilateral agreement on the so-called security guarantees envisaged by the G7 declaration in support of Ukraine. Below are your comments. France will be supplying the white flags. Zelensky knows that if France guarantees his security, his nation at last can feel truly secure. Two leaders of outstanding caliber. Moscow speaks and broadcasts. Moscow, October 19, 2023. RIA Novosti. The Russian aerospace forces were shot down over the past day. Please subscribe to my channel. And if you like it, please thumbs up.